in the year 2039. Gotham City has no heroes. Its people, no hope. Its youth, no future.
Evening, boys and girls. Who's up for some laughs?
Terry McGinnis was part of the problem.
You can't control your temper, and you'd better if you expect to get anywhere in life.
Yeah, I'll be a big success, just like you.
Until a moment of violence brought him to the door of a man named Bruce Wayne.
Let's put a smile on his face.
Leave him alone. Once known as the Batman.
Man, you're something. Are you okay?
Now, the Dark Knight will rise again to drive the shadow of evil from the streets of Gotham. Let's go! Supervillains, beware! There's a new Batman in town. Batman Beyond. Weeknights at 6:30.
You're pretty strong for some clown who thinks he's Batman.
I am Batman. Justice returns to Gotham.
Welcome to my world.
Only Tsunami. The land of Eternia is a paradise with a problem. An act of betrayal has created the ultimate evil. My face! And his name is Skeletor.
Eternia will be mine! Battle position!
The only thing that can stop his evil horde is a legend no one believes in.
A hero shall emerge.
And a prince with an attitude.
All this battle training is just fun and games.
Now, a sword will choose its master. A boy will become a man. And a hero will be born. Tsunami is proud to present He-Man like you've never seen him before in an all-new original movie. Masters of the Universe. Next Friday at 4. Only Tsunami.
4 turtles, mutated beyond recognition. For 15 years, the brothers hid in the sewers, training in the ancient ways of the ninja.
You cannot simply walk amongst the humans.
But we can certainly fly. Woohoo!
Now the teenagers finally surface, but the welcoming committee isn't quite what they expected.
Prepare to battle, costume fools.
We're not wearing costumes.
Don't miss the world premiere of the new Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Saturday, February 8th, 10:30 a.m. Only in the Fox Box.
The original Justice League has become a memory.
I am resigning from the Justice League.
What's gonna happen to the League now?
We rebuild. From the ashes of that great conflict, a new team has arisen. A much, much bigger team.
Each of you brings something different to the table.
Old friends, new heroes. And as usual, plenty of bad guys jumping up to get beat down.
Calm down, and I'll let you go. How about you kiss my ass?
Watch out, evildoers. There's nowhere to run. Because this year, they're all around you. The League is unlimited. Tsunami presents an all-new original series, starring every superhero worth cheering for, and then some. Justice League Unlimited, premiering July 31st at 8:30 p.m.
Now where am I exactly?
Among friends.
There's strength in numbers. Only Tsunami.
In a future where anyone could be a cyborg, cops are a little different. The legendary cyberpunk classic finally comes to television in an all-new original series, Ghost in the Shell Standalone Complex. New episodes every Saturday night at 12:30. The future is now.
Every night around the world, the children sleep, unaware of danger lurking in the shadows. But this night, a strange tune floats on the wind, and the children, one by one, begin to disappear.
I wonder where she could be going.
They are taken to a land of sweet memories and used to power an evil that feeds on their dreams.
My wonderful black dream hole is consuming dream energy from children.
Now, it's up to Sailor Moon and the Sailor Soldiers to put an end to this nightmare. This time, they're gonna need
Sailor Uranus!
a little help.
Oh! Sailor Neptune!
Sailor Moon Super S, next Friday at 5:30. Dream on.
The children!
Only Tsunami.
This place is a town of forgetfulness. 40 years ago, everything we knew was destroyed. The face of the planet changed forever.
There isn't anyone who really knows exactly what did happen.
The survivors left without memories. In the aftermath, a new society has formed.
I perform a much-needed job here in the city of amnesia.
In Paradigm City, the rich close themselves into giant domes, while the poor must live without protection. But one man stands for something more, and he does it in serious style.
As a professional, I just try to do my best.
His name is Roger Smith, the Negotiator.
Try this.
Goes against my principles, but I don't have a choice.
His allies, an android, a butler,
Leave this up to me.
and Big O.
It's showtime!
When they start a job, they always see it through.
Rest in peace! Bye-bye!
Enemies of Paradigm City, beware. There's a new robot on the block.
You're not going anywhere! You crazy little fool! You're gonna get yourself killed! Time to finish this!
Stay here if we do!
It ends it once and for all!
Big O, weekdays at 5:30. Good guys still wear black. Only Tsunami.
The destruction of Unicron has created a black hole, which threatens to swallow the planet.
Let's go!
Now, the Autobots' only hope is to find the ancient planet keys.
Prepare for battle!
But as usual, the Decepticons aren't playing along.
Beat it, Megatron! Oh, really?
Transformers Cybertron. New episodes, Saturdays at 7. Unlock the power.
Gotcha!
Only Tsunami.
From beyond any known galaxy, bringing with them the laws and ideals of their doomed planet Thundera, come the Thundercats. Jaga, the wise. Tigra, the invisible. Chitara, the quick. Wily Cat and Wily Kit, a cunning junior duo. Patrol, the deadly. And the Snarf. The Thundercats, all sworn to serve their young lord, Lion-O, and to instruct him in the secrets of the Eye of Thundera. the eye embedded in the hilt of the mystic Sword of Omens, and the source of the Thundercats' power.
Thunder! 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 Thundercats! Ho!
Pursuing the Thundercats to Third Earth, and determined to possess the Eye of Thundera for their own evil purposes, are the hideous mutants of the planet Plundar, led by the reptilian Sly. They form an unholy alliance with the ageless devil priest of First Earth, Mumra.
Reactor engaged. Traction locked. All go.
Hello, hello. I hope you're all doing well today. I'm hoping we can get through this, because Lord knows we didn't yesterday. So, a bit of upkeep, it seems. Let me double check something here. Alright, so, a bit of upkeep, just in general. One of the people involved here, of course you're allowed to send fan art. There's a section in the server for it on the channel, or a sector in the server for it, so you can do that. One of the victims reached out to me and talked about how they're going to essentially take what I'm saying and take it to heart. So, again, I don't have any hatred for these people. I want to be very clear about that. So, we're going to continue getting into this. I talked a little bit with Falgi on his stream. Well, not on his stream, in the side chat. And he thinks that only a few of these people have much in the way of legitimate grievances. So we will see, I suppose. But I would also like to just say something else real quick. I don't mind if people hate me. My life, if you're a human being who does anything, you're going to have people who hate you. But can you not be insane? Can you not get butt mad about the dumbest things in the world? And if you are, keep it to yourself. Because you're just proving to everybody else that you're just unhinged. And I think it's interesting how many people who have been watching me for a while are finally recognizing, a lot of the people who obsessively hate over Lio are just crazy. No wonder sometimes he acts a bit of erratic. So, yay. As far as the new stuff on the stream, I was trying to do is figure out how to do the animated PNG thing, but I couldn't get that to work. So I actually do have enough frames to do an actual mouth movement. But, you know, here we are. Froze up. Stop freezing up. YouTube is not receiving enough video to maintain smooth streaming. As such, viewers will experience buffering. What the heck? Let me see here. Stream settings. It's on ultra low latency. I don't know what the problem is. Are you guys still buffering? I guess not. That's good. That's good. Alright, so we left off earlier on this doc on the anonymous victim number 1. So let's get back to there. Boop. And sooner or later, I'll figure out how to do the movement with the reading and all that. I did not have the time today. So I think we got past this part here. To add salt to the wound, they blame me for the conversation even starting. I called this out as projection jokingly because to some extent I think it was. They teased me, asking me what I was going to do about it. I joked about chasing them around at Games Done Quick someday. Something I found funny to do with my tall friends, picturing a tall person chasing someone tall down a short person, I guess. How always sounds stupid, true. And they told me they would hug me and pick me up. Small friends are fun. I don't even know if Algie's streaming today. Not my... I don't know. That was one of the many exceptions I made for Shay. Usually these things include more intimate or affectionate things like calling me cute. I hated anyone calling me this, but I made exceptions for them specifically. It made me feel special. I felt important to them. The same goes for being picked up. I have openly discussed how I would hate the idea of being picked up. It's something people used to do without my consent throughout my childhood because of my height, which resulted in me being spun around and tossed like a doll. But it's entirely possible Shay didn't see it. It's the least of my concerns nonetheless, but thought it'd be important to note my own pattern of allowing Shay to do such things I wouldn't allow others to. I drew art for them for free when they asked, which made them into their profile picture for the month of October 2024. During a time where I halted drawing for people when they asked, even when payment was given. Another example of an exception I made for them. I finished it the same day. Shay actually wasn't the nicest to me about the artwork, but apologized the next day after I confronted them about how it hurt my feelings. Well, that was dickish of them. Shay, that is. The bracketed section was added after finishing a doc. While reading back, I completely forgot to mention this is not the only time Shay made this exact proof joke to me in relation to seeing my butt. In the early hours of the 27th of March 2024, Shay started streaming Stardew Valley on their Shay 2 account. In the stream chat, I remember mentioning New Year's butt incident to them and tagged back to the joke I had made back then. Shay refused to respond proof again to me during the stream. I responded back, linking back to the proof I had sent and showed them the image of a little pet shop toy I had within reaching distance because I didn't want to take another photo. She never directly responded after this, and I know for a fact during the stream because I actively sent them Stardew Valley wiki information unprompted, implying I was sending this as a result of the stream, which again, Shay doesn't respond to in DMs. I've sent people random things when they've asked for other things in DMs. That can be fun sometimes. Why was I afraid to speak about Shay? There's a situation I will not give details about that occurred in late 2024 that involved me finding out about a dynamic between Shay and someone else that was sexual in nature. That person, victim number 7, came to me in confidence about their feelings, and because of the guilt of keeping my knowledge of it from Shay and wanting to help in sorting the situation out as someone who cared about the both of them as friends, I told them that I knew. The reason I specifically bring this up is because Shay's reaction to me knowing this information was one of the big reasons I was so terrified to confide in anyone about their own interactions, both in the past and present. They repeated to me that the interactions they had were personal and private, cited how it would have made me uncomfortable to read them because I'm Arrow Ace, and said it made them uncomfortable that the person in question came to me they knew I was close with without their consent instead of talking to other people. The situation was in the back of my mind until the most recent incident. It plagued me in a way because I knew that deep down the 2023 New Year situation was wrong, and I kept linking the two situations, wondering if Shay saw our relationship in a different way, or in a similar way. I had not enough reason to properly think this through and tried to forget about it completely. Shay had a pretty large paranoia and trauma over people talking behind their backs, vague posting, and expressing this to me in multiple times during our friendship. When I was vague about things, well, I'm starting to wonder why he had that paranoia. Curious. When I was vague about things that were bothering me to them, they would pry and try to get it out of me. Very Peaches behavior. Shay made it a point to tell me multiple times that I would scare them with my vagueness, asking if it was ever about them. Sometimes I didn't particularly want to tell Shay how I was feeling or what was bothering me, but I always found myself doing it when they pried. I couldn't bring myself to tell them no. It felt bad to tell them no. This also obviously didn't help with what I said previously about my fear of telling other people the crappy things they had done to me. They had trauma about their friends going behind their back. If I confided in people in private about how uncomfortable they made me feel, I would be triggering their trauma if they ever find out. It was an unsettling and guilt-ridden feeling. I told myself multiple times when bad things happen that I wouldn't tell anyone. And maybe I'd have to take this crap to the grave with me. I wanted to be loyal and a good friend, and honestly, the entire situation has made me feel like the worst person alive because of this. In the present, I can safely say I've carried guilt for months. I feel like an effing monster, especially now that this is going public. Look, you're not a monster at all for being fearful about this. I have learned in my years involving myself with a lot of this stuff that people who often screech that I have trauma about people talking about my back, they can have that. However, more often than not, they use it as a way to control people. And I get trauma can affect people in a very negative way. Lord knows I know that myself. But I do think sometimes people claim trauma when it's just something they don't like. Or in this case, a way to manipulate somebody and keep them in control. Which is dumb. And I hate the person for this, frankly. Shay and other people's hair. Well, you know what? At least it's not a fart fetish. Something I've learned against my will during the situation is Shay has a thing for long hair. I mean, so do I. Why is this relevant? December 2nd of 2024, Shay had spoken to me about how they had gotten a new hair dryer in which they told me if that gives you ideas. Huh? You know, if somebody said that to me, I'd be like, I don't really need it to heat up the action figures to get the joints moving. I have a heat gun. At the time, I had no clue what that meant, so I paid it no mind. I had mentioned to them that I wanted to cut my hair shorter, because it helps with my gender dysphoria. I think everyone knows I'm trans. And to my surprise, she responded with, "Your hair looks so amazing, though." Like they didn't want me to cut it. This was confusing to me, because Shay knows I am trans. Again, literally everyone does. It's strange, but nothing heinous without the context that I know. To give them credit, they told me it was my own choice. That was fine, but the thing is that they have a thing for longer hair, and it seemed to be known to people who have had intimate relationships with them. It was news to me until like a month ago, and it was pretty horrifying to find out. This is the exact fear I had with my ex-boyfriend, and he was being subtle about something he had a kink over, and that our innocent and personal conversations were being used to satiate his desires. I was pretty effing upset to find this out, and while it may not have meant anything to most, it means a crap ton to me. No wonder Shay said, "If it gives you ideas." It all makes sense to me now. Additionally, after this happened, she offered to let me run my hands through their hair, and then proceeded to cat post? Cat post? The heck is cat post? Lovely. Other people can corroborate that Shay says similar things and does similar things with others, especially people they wish to be intimate or are actively or intimate with. Look, everybody just had a thing for thick goth girls. We wouldn't be here. Did anything weird ever happen in Trusted Chat? Trusted Chat was a channel in Shay's Discord comprising around 35 plus of Shay's friends and Frog family. Only people with the @idiot role could see the hashtag Trusted Channel, along with a couple other channels such as Vent. In 2023, I was added to Trusted as an artist that Shay considered a friend. Typically, people were added to Shay who Shay met from their server, community, and wanted to get closer to. But as the years went on, it became a channel that only really ever added friends of friends. I'm sure you can find the odd examples of Shay misbehaving and being sexual in Trusted Chat. I think everyone is guilty of having those moments, despite the fact that we had despite the fact that we had children there. So, I've had to talk about this stuff before, and I probably will until the day I die, because that just seems to be the thing now. But, if you have children in your server, do not any of this ever, please. It is dumb, at absolute bare minimum, and, predatory at absolute worst. Like, I would recommend not even having children in your server if you can help it in general, depending on what type of content you make, right? Because, unfortunately, one of the biggest issues, like, let's go ahead and take this from a, what's the word I'm looking for? Logistical standpoint. Moderating a server that has children in it is obnoxious. Because you have to watch adults who don't pay attention like a freaking hawk. And it is never fun. You will make more enemies. People won't mind themselves. And you'll have to kick a bunch of people because human beings are stupid. And kids are annoying. Don't. And if you see somebody in a server that has children in it posting and talking sexually, tell people so they can get yeeted or beaten into the ground. Okay? Okay. I'm sure you can find the odd example. Children there. I'm going to mention the specific instance, though, because I remember it extremely clearly and have the evidence to prove it happened. September 6th of 2024. A conversation was had about being player one. In the Vent channel, me and others were participants in this conversation, which I'm aware I shouldn't have been participating in either, but someone who also was participant was Shay. But what's worth is that there is proof that two minors saw these messages and were present lurking. Both of them were 17. Why even tell people online that you're doing this stuff? Like, why even have a long, protracted conversation about your habits of self-touching? Who does that? And why? So that I can understand why they do it before beating them to death. I have to ask, how the actual F was this allowed? And why the F did nobody stop this conversation? That should never have been normalized, and I'm sickened with myself for not putting a stop to it. I had a feeling it was wrong, but went along with it because everyone else seemed fine with it, especially the server owner and main figure, Shay. If you have a bad feeling about something, voice it. Doesn't matter who's in agreement that it's fine. Like, period. Ultimately, I understand that everyone has since completely halted the amount of sexual conversations taking place in Trusted. It's a shame it took everyone to turn 18 for it to happen. As of this writing, the idiot role in Trusted still exists. Fantastic. So what was the most recent example of Shay's behavior? Alright, we're on to the interaction that actually sparked my need to talk about Shay's behavior to other people. Between May 7th and May 8th of 2025, this happened last night, so we carried from one day to the next in my time zone. For everyone else, this could have been May 7th. You don't need to put that qualifier there. It's whatever. I responded to Xander's usual hello bottoms from my iPhone message to 20, that's SO number 20, for the obvious reason I do not identify with the label bottom. We identify with these things now? I have never personally jived with the idea of being labeled as such, and it's something that Shay has tried to playfully argue I am since we became friends. Beat him. They even once teased that I was becoming like redacted number 1, who regularly got called a bottom. It's like they so badly wanted me to be someone I am not, and that always made me feel somewhat uncomfortable. I tried my best to push against this when I could. Anyhow, soon after I responded, Shay teased that I was a bottom for whatever reason. This prompted me to tease them back about a tweet I had on my private Twitter. So fantastic, I had to make this unprivate to show what happened. This is embarrassing to admit, and I shouldn't have to admit this, but a big reason why I so quickly felt like I had to prove I wasn't a bottom, and in turn a top, was a sexual tweet I had made, is because the idea of being a bottom makes me afraid of being taken advantage of within the context of sex positions. You do not need to tell people this. So for anybody who ever has to write a Google Doc, in general, you can just say, I don't like it, and I told the creep to stop, and he didn't stop. You don't need to delve into your personal demons about this, if nothing else, for your own, sanity's sake. Because, yeah, no. You don't need to do it. You really don't. All right? So don't. So don't. The reasons are very personal to me because of my sexual trauma and how I have been treated my entire life, which I am sorry to hear. I feel small and powerless. This is why you should hit the gym and get on that creatine and protein. And I struggle to say no in most situations. It's something I've been more active doing, rejecting people outright and saying no when I'm not up to something or uncomfortable. I am so genuinely afraid of being manipulated into situations without my consent or being forced. It is a huge fear of mine, and it has been for years. It genuinely sucks that I have to explain this. None of you should have to know this much about me. True. I wouldn't be surprised if it makes you uncomfortable to read. Well, unfortunately, yeah, it kind of does. Because it should make you uncomfortable. The fact that I feel like I have to explain this to show the gravity of the situation and why this should never have happened to me. Well, you didn't really need to. Just for clarity, you didn't need to. That tweet was made in a moment of comfortability with my sexuality, a moment where for once in my life I felt okay with the idea of doing something with someone in person intimately and sexually. Shay ripped discomfort away from me. I have no reason to share this sort of thing with any, and I mean any and all, of you ever again. So back to the timeline of events. The time is 9:08 p.m. I took the screenshot to the DMs with Shay to show them proof. Funny how this is the third time we're doing this proof bit, huh? Because I trusted them. They responded shyly and teasing with a hey, 3, which is a signature for them when they're trying to imply something involving them. I instantly knew what they meant by this, but hoped I was just making things up. I didn't want to assume Shay wanted me to give them a hickey. It made me revolt at the thought. It disgusted me. I don't want sexual interactions with Shay. Why would they say that? Maybe I'm just overthinking it. So I just took it as a joke. I teased them. I called them slur that we all reclaim teasingly in a group of friends. I'm going to assume that it's clanker. I joked that they probably liked it knowing them because I had seen their reaction for being called that before. They seemingly responded seriously, worsening the feeling, but I kept it light and playful as I could. We spoke for a couple more messages before the conversation dropped off at 9:59 p.m. or 9:56 p.m. You don't have to get so tentacle about it. We don't really need to know the time period, just that it happened. Shay messages me at 12:30 a.m., responding to what I said hours prior, randomly to elaborate and share a photo of themselves alongside it. So the conversation reignites. I call them pretty. They respond positively using the blushing emoji they use constantly. I send a patting gif. We regularly exchange for platonic nice reasons. This is something I usually did with emojis, but we did it with gifs. That was normal. Then Shay responds, please. I sent another patting gift and called them a sopping wet cat, an affectionate term I use to describe characters like or I don't know, anyone that gives that energy. I was keeping it light like we should have been. At 12:39 a.m., 3 whole hours after I sent that screenshot, Shay responds to it with, so when am I getting this through, P? I have to make this text so big so I can get through everyone's head what was actually said. Shay, for whatever reason, continues to say this was a God... what? Situation. It wasn't. It was never, and I don't know why they continue to make it out like it was. If you check the videos that should have been posted the other night, you can see for yourself that the attachment links to the Hickey tweet. If they weren't posted, I would make sure that they actually posted them this time like I originally wanted. I'm saying this now so I don't forget later, but Shay has actively lied about the situation to people before making any of the accountability posts. They were callous in how they talked about it like it was clownable. Luckily, the person who was sent this knew better than to trust what Shay was saying, but who knows what else they said behind the closed doors. The implication is that they told multiple people based on them saying basically everyone I've spoken to. The most recent accountability post was also lied about it too. Why are you incapable of speaking the truth? To directly quote, it was pretty explicitly written as, God, I need this. Oh, so that's what that means. Was it really now? I don't know. It seems to me like you were expecting me to give you a hickey. Funny joke you got there. I laughed so hard. Honestly, it sounds more like a demand to me than a joke. Sorry, I'm getting carried away and speaking directly to Shay instead of you all. True, shouldn't be doing that. My apologies. It's the only way I can really express this now without speaking to them directly. I don't really want to do that with the last two confrontations we had. I'll speak on that later. Oh, I see Klenoa Pedo is back. Sorry, Klenoa Pedo. I'm not Jewish. Womp womp. I'm Hispanic. I was confused, horrified. Shay had just confirmed the concern I had. I assumed was just me overthinking. I assumed I had misunderstood, so I asked for clarification on it. And they were talking about me or in general. Shay confirmed the sexual joke was aimed at me. It sounded pretty good to be given a hickey from me, the Arrow Ace who had never had sex, never done anything sexually intimate with anyone, who had never given a hickey. I've never even kissed someone with a romantic or sexual intent. So I clarified again, thinking maybe they didn't realize I was being serious or that it was a sexual tweet. You know what you could do? Next time somebody tries to give you that level of grief, make it like you're going to give them a hickey and then just tear their throat out. Like a wild animal. Solves the problem. Shay doubled down twice, took none of the opportunity to shut down the joke they made. Sexual and platonic interactions aren't terribly different to Shay. It made me rethink every single interaction we had once months had passed. How much of what we said, what we did was being taken sexually. If sexual and platonic aren't distant, what was our platonic friendship? I declined. It hadn't sunk in yet how bad this was, just like New Year's of 2023. I was ready to sweep this under the rug and take it to the grave with me. I felt the horror, yet chose to ignore it because Shay wouldn't actually do that to me, right? I think they realized their F-up, telling me that they weren't into hickeys anyways. Sure, glad this was funny to you. I sent a head pat gift, unsure of how to deal with my feelings of discomfort. Shay continued speaking and speaking and speaking, saying they wanted head pats for real. I admitted to them, finally, that it was jarring to hear what they said. They apologized instantly, telling me they didn't mean it, conveniently acting like they were unsure if I was Arrow Ace. You know, I remember the first time I was ever told the word Arrow Ace, and I was very confused because I thought it was somebody talking about how good they were at archery. And I wish I could say that was just a dad joke, but I'm actually being dead serious. It is so interesting to me that back when I told them I knew information about their situation with another friend, they cited me being ace as a reason why it might be uncomfortable for me to learn about their sexual dynamic. So why was there such hesitance now? Is it because they potentially saw me expressing that I was unsure if I was Arrow Ace once in the vent channel because I was trying to figure out what was going on with my sexuality? That's speculation on my part. But if that is the case, then why the actual F would you take advantage of that? Every outcome, in my opinion, as to why Shay would do all this, led to Shay not acting appropriately. They pushed against the boundary, pushed the limits of our friendship, and tested the waters to see if something stuck. My game theory? He did this because he liked the power dynamic. And I think the reason why he seems to really focus on Arrow Ace people, I think he does that with Ace people to try to convert them. We're at a venture guess. Don't pull this crap with anyone, again, who you know is Arrow Ace. Don't pull the demanding sexual acts joke with anyone. It's creepy and weird. It borders on sexual harassment. Shay said this was mostly a joke, and I told him not to worry. I feel bad for saying it, as it took me time to wake up that this wasn't okay whatsoever. I pushed down my feelings to make them feel better about it. They then told me I would never, ever, ever do anything that would make you uncomfortable. I knew what they meant by this, really. They meant that it would never intend to make me uncomfortable. The cruel irony is, this was the most uncomfortable I had felt talking to Shay since New Year's of 2023. I just talked it up to an autism slip-up. I don't know, man. I don't think trying to push somebody's sexual boundaries is an autism slip-up. Lol. Autism slip-ups is I don't know, talking about Thomas the Tank Engine in a conversation that had nothing to do with it. I don't know. Where was it? We all had them, completely miscommunicating the situation entirely. It was a second big-time mistake they had made. This wasn't something other people went through, right? For additional context, as it sounds weird without saying it, I'm diagnosed autistic. Saying they had an autism slip-up isn't a slight. It's how... Well, I mean, we kind of assumed that when you said we all do it from time to time, so... How do I find out other people went through this too? I hope you don't mind that I start this with some of our last interactions for context. I kept all this to myself for months, acting like things were normal. I actually kind of forgot it had happened at a lot of points because of how far down I buried it. I had started to distance myself from trusted chat and had been hanging out with people in smaller groups due to the sexual nature and vulgarity that I was getting sick of. I'm sorry. And stopped instigating conversations with Shay as much subconsciously. I was supportive and they supported me. There were still the odd interactions that were more personal, like venting to each other, me congratulating them on runs. Games Done Quick came around and we were still friendly and supportive with each other. Where am I here? I had ended up venting to Shay eventually about my feelings about trusted. I didn't feel like I belonged. I blamed myself for not enjoying the sexual conversations and vulgarity. I was also having family issues around the same time, so I was extremely broken up. This was the last conversation that me and Shay had that felt meaningful and personal, where I felt comfortable to vent to them. It took place in July of 2025. In August, me and Shay had a conversation about their trip to Cedar Point. It was short, but ended in Shay saying I looked like I would be extremely comfortable to cuddle with, before telling me after I had hoped we could meet someday. Absolutely, me too. 10 minutes later, they followed up with definitely gotta make it happen. You're one of my closest friends. I want to visit one day. Additionally, on August 15th, my birthday, nice. Shay would repeat the same sentiment. This to me was more sinister in my opinion. They said, one day when I'm a YouTube millionaire, I'll fly you out here and we could have a proper party. I reacted positively and it probably shouldn't have. Then again, at the time I saw it as being pretty innocent, all things considered. It's not a party unless a fight happens. This spooks me now, knowing what went on with some of their friends when they saw them in person. This included, but it's not limited to, Shay groping Audrey's butt at Games Done Quick 2024 and cuddling Anonymous number 3 to the point where he could feel Shay's dick on his leg. Violence! Both of them had given me permission to mention these encounters by name here. The conversation dropped off at 9:24 a.m. and Shay messaged me again saying someday, 3, and then for sure at 5:46. As you can see, 8 hours after the conversation had been dropped. However, before my birthday, I had begun to discuss my feelings of Shay's exhibiting weird behavior. This was because someone I was talking to in a voice call vaguely brought up something relating to how Shay's behavior reflected on trusted chat, vulgarity, and sexual nature. It woke me up completely, and a place for me to talk about everything was made for me. I finally told a small group of people my exact 2 main experiences with Shay up to that point in the early hours of the 9th of August 2025. I told them everything, sobbing as I did it. Years of anxiety I couldn't pinpoint the reason for, kindly connecting them together to form what it is now. Why was I so nervous and antsy whenever I got a DM from Shay? I just thought I was being completely parasocial, but no. Subconsciously, I had been pushing down discomfort from both the 2 big interactions that bothered me and the smaller, more subtle ones that came in between. Well, glad you finally got it out. One of the people contained in this group had also been personally affected by Shay's sexual intimate nature. Anonymous number 7. We both exchanged our stories to each other and wondered if anyone had been through similar. Praying nobody had. We knew if this became about more than 2 people, we would have an issue to deal with. We assumed it was just us and waited. We were wrong. Slowly but surely, as days, weeks, and months passed, I learned more and more people who had been through the same or similar interactions with Shay through them telling about which was happened to me up until that day. There are things that transpired because of this, but I will touch on them later and chronologically. As a result of me being so open behind the scenes, slowly learning to trust other people and putting their trust in me, we all started to notice a very prevalent pattern. We were being playfully flirted with, advances made on us, sexual acts exchanged, which were mostly instigated by Shay. Some of us were young, but of age when it happened. The majority of us are feminine, often AFAB. Some of us are vulnerable and not appropriate to be initiating flirtatious or sexual conversations, acts with. Again, I'm arrow ace. I was unavailable. Eventually, I decided I needed to take action. The first confrontation. In August of 2025, I sent my very first and what I intended to be my last message to Shay. As I explained in the message, and as Shay had mentioned to several people without my permission, this awakening did also open my eyes to a running history of situations I had faced in my life that were related to sex or sexual situations. Yes, I realized I have sexual trauma. I'm not going to elaborate further on why or what happened in my past that caused me to have this trauma. I already said enough, and quite frankly, I'm disgusted that Shay has gone around telling people about this trauma spiral I went down. That was not the place to mention at all. Anywho, after I sent this message, I blocked Shay like I had warned them. At the same time, I simply did not simply want to deal with the stress and anxiety of having to respond to their immediate reaction. I had been through enough of that, even typing the message up, and the last several weeks had been never-ending hell to begin with. This boundary wouldn't last, though. August 27th of 2025, I unblocked and messaged to express my distaste with the fact that the profile picture they were using was a complete redraw of my Halloween witch art I had personally made for them at my request. The same art from October 2024. Now I have my own feelings about the communication between me and Shay relating to permission being given to literally redraw my art almost exactly, but it's not something any of you should care about particularly. I'm outlining the reason communication started up again. Shay apologized, so it's whatever. After a short conversation, Shay asked if we could talk. I told him I didn't want to. I had already stated to them I wasn't ready to unblock them, but to go on ahead. Okay. So, can anybody tell me what they noticed? What do you guys think was the reason that Shay changed that profile picture to be an almost complete replication of the Halloween art? What do you think they did that? Anybody tell me? Why do you think they did that? See if the chat can figure it out. Bingo, Tempest got it to get their attention. They knew having that as their profile picture would get them to unblock and communicate again. That's why they did it. Good one. Good catch. Shay guilted me over the fact that I had sent my message and blocked them, telling me about how awful it was for them, how they had a difficult day, how it was late at night, how I should have given them basic decency to let them talk to me. I felt so guilty, but I pushed through and defended myself. They responded and used the fact that I knew about their trauma against me and made me feel like I was wrong for doing any of this, despite the fact that I had every right to. I had to do what I did for myself and my own trauma. To move on and heal is what I needed. And to talk to Shay and be exposed to the full brunt of their reaction was going to send me over the edge. One of our comforts had to be sacrificed, and I had sacrificed mine to Shay too many times. It had to be done. I told Shay that they needed to be careful and stop the behavior. At this very time, I was still under the impression it was just me and the other person, and almost maybe a third person. I'm unsure about that one. So I was trying to warn them in case it ever did become more people. Shay was defensive, saying we had been friends for years and how they wouldn't do this to a random person. I asked them what their intent was behind looping back to the tweets after hours. I had sent it, and they had already responded. This made Shay even more defensive. They told me that they would have stopped because I had told them outright I had made them uncomfortable. We now know, based on other people's accounts, that showing Shay signs of discomfort outright is not a guarantee that your boundaries will be respected. I didn't notice at the time, though, as it wasn't something brought up by anybody yet. I knew vected. So I believed it. It made me feel even more guilt. They then told me they had no intent and took what I had said as me implying negative/malicious intent. Shay continued to say that it was a mistake and that it was hurting them, that I was magnifying a slip-up that was pulled up months after the fact. Saying it should have been made clear from my actions that it was never going to happen again. Sure thing, buddy. I clarified what I meant, and they started blaming the group dynamic I trusted as to why they thought it was okay. They repeatedly made it to a point to state how I knew how trusted was when it came to these things. They made it out like I was accusing them of repeated behavior of the sort, getting extremely defensive and treating me like I was making a big deal out of nothing. I felt crazy. They made me feel crazy. They became even more defensive, excusing their behaviors understandable because of the group dynamic. I tried to point out this was a problem within itself, that the group dynamic was getting to a point where people were getting involved with or witnessing interactions that made them uncomfortable when they didn't want to. They got upset at me for implying there was a pattern and that this was a one-time mistake that won't happen again. In hindsight, I think we all understand now that this was a complete lie, not just in general, but in relation to me too. She was exhibiting this behavior with several people, maybe even more we don't know about, and it's clear they've acted this way with me more than once in subtle and unsubtle ways. For the record, you'll probably notice that I completely failed to mention that it had happened on New Year's of 2023. You might be wondering why I never brought that up. To put it simply, I was already getting grilled for bringing up Shay's actions from months ago, let alone years ago. I knew I was already going to face consequences for bringing up the more recent incident, so I left the other out entirely. I shouldn't have left it out in hindsight, but at the moment I was so afraid of what the response would be already that I wanted to limit how much of it would hurt as much as possible for my own sake. But at the time, I doubted myself. Even after time had passed, I still doubted myself. Heck, I still kind of doubt myself. I still wonder, is it really that bad? Did I make a big deal out of nothing? And it is so bad that during my therapist visit, my own therapist acknowledged how my language during recounting sounded like I was unsure of myself before I'd even mentioned how much doubt I held for myself. Shay continues that they have continued to work on themselves over the past year, accidentally revealing this as something they know was a problem that needed fixing. They continue to paint it as a one-time mistake to me again, saying how much it hurt them, comparing what I said to something someone would say about an abuser. Well, again, they talk about how badly it affects them, how it's a one-time mistake. Again, I'm not even going to explain. You've seen this all before. You've seen the same sort of self-loathing language and explanation that it was a one-time slip-up. I powered through, trying to explain myself. It was exhausting, and it's exhausting to retell now. I'm sure it's exhausting to read, too. I'm sorry, but thank you for getting this far anyway. At this point, Shay started to bombard me with message after message that I was starting to shut down. It was a message after message, and it was starting to blur together to me. Shay openly states to my face that they cannot truthfully and honestly look at the message I sent there and say a large portion of this is their fault. Then proceeds to call their mistake small, completely downplaying how damaging their actions were. Shay then begins to therapize me right at... Therapize. Play therapist for me. Try that one. Right after being crappy to me. It gives me genuine whiplash reading this back. And then, grossest of all, assumes I find it difficult to believe they can make mistakes because I looked up to them. What? It is genuinely sickening having to read this back, how manipulative and nasty they were, yet being kind and close at the same time. The way they speak to me in this specific instance is genuinely some of the worst in terms of how effing awful they treated me during the conversation as a person, as a victim of sexual trauma. It felt like being stabbed, and then after complaining about it, being told, but it was a small mistake. I know you find it hard to see that it was a mistake, but it's not your fault. I know you blame yourself. This must be so painful, while twisting the knife further. Was the intent to hurt me? Was it actually just a mistake, despite their repeated patterns of behavior to me and countless others? I don't care anymore what the original intent was. I don't care anymore about what you, the reader, might feel like the intent was. There was no real way of knowing, because evidently even Shay doesn't know at this point. And I don't trust their word on what they think their intent might have been, because they even said it themselves. I convinced myself in my memory that the joke I made was, God, I wish that was me. Alright then. If you can convince yourself that the exact thing you said was completely different, how the heck can I trust what your original intent was supposed to be? The intent ultimately doesn't matter. Right? It really doesn't. Shay then mentioned someone joking about a Google Doc to my face, which, painful irony, I know. It honestly feels like they were taunting me with a reminder of their trauma. But this time, about this situation getting out to the public. It was not necessary to tell me this information whatsoever, but they continued nonetheless, telling me about how afraid they were for their life being ruined by falsehoods. I'm not going to deny that Shay has serious trauma involving the idea of being canceled or publicly called out. That would be stupid. They're a content creator, and it happens all the time to others, whether it's false or not. But they definitely weaponized this trauma against me whether they intended to or not. They talk about being called out in public during a conversation I was having with them in private while I was coming to express my discomfort and concern over the fact that Shay did this thing to me. Was wildly inappropriate. I think Shay is extremely aware of that now. I was clearly checked out, but Shay continues making it about them. Self-explanatory. They then start to play therapist to me again, giving me unsolicited advice as someone older. I don't know how else to describe this other than embarrassing. Is that mean to say? Probably, but it is genuinely tone deaf. I do not want advice off the person who had talked to me terribly just 20 minutes prior. Fair. It felt wrong, so I told them I wanted space now. Sadly, we're not done with this section yet. Well, Shay, I'm pretty sure I'm older than you, so I'll go ahead and give you some advice. Bite the curb and buckle up. Shay respected my wishes, yet you asked me to keep them unblocked. This is genuinely inexcusable, and I should have told them no. To guilt me into keeping access open to direct contact after getting me to talk about them isn't something I was ready to do. Because they don't want to be in isolation. It's genuinely selfish, terrible behavior. My feelings were not considered whatsoever, no matter how many times Shay tells themselves and others that they were. If my feelings were genuinely considered, you wouldn't have asked. You wouldn't have had minimized your mistake. You wouldn't have... Oh boy, lagging again. Yay! I have no idea why this thing's lagging on me. It's directly connected. If my feelings were genuinely Huh? I have no idea what happened, but it completely cut the screen out, even though it's been fine. Anyways. Shay respected my wishes. She has asked to keep them unblocked. This is generally inexcusable, and I should have told them no to guilt me to keeping access open to direct contact or getting me to talk to them about something I wasn't ready to because they don't want to be isolated. It is genuinely extremely selfish, terrible behavior. My feelings were not considered whatsoever, no matter how many times Shell tells themselves others, and they were. If my feelings were genuinely considered, you wouldn't have asked. You wouldn't have minimized your mistake. You wouldn't have spoken when I told you I didn't want to talk. Shay's ideas of consideration and care for me were surface level. I didn't care that they gave me the choice. They shouldn't have asked me to keep them unblocked in the first place. True. All right, let me check something real quick. One moment. I mean, according to the internet speed tester, my speed's fine, so I don't know what's going on here. After they told me they were trying to get better at what was essentially understanding and respecting people's boundaries, they asked me to lift my own boundary for their own benefit, blocking them. And I said it was okay, because I was an idiot. The name dropped and why Shay was banned. I ended up reblocking them soon after. They didn't notice until right now. Sorry. Why? Don't apologize to the freak. This is because since that conversation happened, I had heard of more people's experiences. At this point, the entire thing left a bad taste in my mouth, and I was sick of making exceptions. But it was hearing about what Shay told to people behind the scenes that really cemented to me that they were someone I never wished to speak to ever again. I had learnt this through Redacted number 2, who had been messaged by Shay and told what happened. Shay's message, as I mentioned prior, contained the lie that the joke was the caliber of God I wish that were me. That is simply not true. Like I said before, it was plainly written as, so when am I getting this, though? It was direct, and when asked for clarification, they doubled down and said they wouldn't mind receiving it from me. Sigh. That was the mic cutting in and out. I think that's just something going on here. I had received this information after being contacted by somebody who had been affected by Shay's previous actions, Anonymous number 6, on the 11th of September 2025. This is when I learned how far back Shay's actions have gone. It spanned several years, over 5 years to be specific. The person in question was aware Shay had messaged Redacted 2 and had happened to piece together that me leaving a group, the same group Shay was about to be banned from, was a direct result of Shay making me uncomfortable. This was something that Redacted 2 actually tried to reach out to me to figure out too. But because it was a general question as to why I left, I tried to conceal what had happened out of fear. Redacted 2 would tell Shay. I had assumed that both of them were really close for some reason. After a lot of talking on the 12th of September, Shay was banned from the group. Said group was told what had happened, and my identity was kept anonymous as advertised. It was for my safety on a slim chance that if it were ever to leak. Originally, screen caps were censored heavily to avoid any sort of revealing my identity. The problem was that in Trusted, Shay was responding to the ban in real time in the vent channel. This is when my name was dropped. All of my friends, everyone, both within the group they were banned from, a lot of which were also in Trusted, and outside of the group in Trusted, now knew I was involved in this. People in the vent chat started to talk about me, and because of how Shay presented the situation to both people in chat and privately, they were defending Shay and making out like I was being unreasonable. As soon as this happened, I was told by people. It was effed up and wrong, so they told me. It was mortifying, and to watch people I cared about talk about me like that was soul-crushing. I can imagine. Shay once deleted the message that the name drops me or edited it out. Now I felt obligated to completely come forward to the group Shay was banned from. They already knew I was a big part in this, so I had absolutely nothing to lose. It was scary. I didn't like it at all, but now my motivation turned to making sure this would never happen again. I now had the ability to be 100% transparent about how I was treated, and as a result, multiple people came forward to the entire group too. Whether it was small interactions that seemed off or continued weird behavior that spanned long passages of time, people now felt confident enough to share their own experiences with Shay because they knew they weren't the only one. It was weirdly healing to know I wasn't as alone as I thought I was, and I'm sure the others affected can personally relate to that too. I shared full video evidence to the people in the group at the first confrontation I had with Shay, and understandably they were disappointed. They already had screenshots of other Big 2 incidents, though this was new to them. Now we had a bigger problem. A lot of people had experiences with Shay reacting to them sexually or flirtatiously. Additionally, Shay had just name-dropped me and vented about their own behavior to the response of support from the rest of our friends, who didn't know what was going on. This is when other people got involved and started to aid Shay in the process of trying to make this right, working with both sides to gather evidence and to try to minimize the damage as much as possible. Shay had 2 people look over their first statement, plus 1 person look over their second, and personally I didn't think they would have been inclined to make these if people hadn't been working together. This is probably news to hear from all of you, considering Shay has made no note or reference to the fact that they received help, support, and encouragement in making the decision to make their own accountability post. Instead, they have phrased it as though they've done it all their own. Gee, I wonder why. I can now confirm that Ocean... Why can't it ever be just somebody named Steve? Why? Ocean Bagel looked over the first accountability post, and Willie J. looked over both accountability posts. Both of them have helped mediate the situation, and I'm thankful for all the work they've done for all of us. Once we were notified that Shay was planning on making an accountability post, we waited. The first accountability post. On the 14th of September 2025, an accountability post was sent and trusted that vaguely talked about how Shay had a handful of interactions with friends that made them uncomfortable, that were sexual in nature. This post talked about intent more than once, spoke about how it made them feel, and ended the post with, "I will do better, I promise." Shay says they will do better. It is a repeated thing that they have said multiple people at the point, but clearly Shay has not done better enough to stop themselves from omitting information, repeatedly talking about how they feel about how they hurt people. Trauma dumping is what is supposed to be situations where taking accountability for ways they hurt other people and telling outright lies and downplaying what they did. Every single statement that has been made about the situation to Shay, to all of you, has had a pattern of self-loathing, vagueness, and a pretty fake sense of how much Shay actively wanted to make these posts. But we'll get more into that when I talk about their most recent second accountability post. Fantastic. For transparency, this post was sent not by me, not sent to me by Shay or the 2 people who saw it before posting. I had to find it throughout friends who were there to see it themselves as soon as it was posted. It was kind of horrifying to see people's reactions to this after the fact, watching people I had known to just blindly support Shay without full context. People made out that they were just an amazing person for doing below the bare minimum. It broke my heart. I understand that people were hesitant to come to me about this, that it is difficult to ask someone what happened because they feel it might not be their place, but nobody came to me to ask what happened directly or to tell me that they were here for me because of this situation. People were too scared to, and it made me feel so doggone alone. People pussyfooted around it entirely, and the only support I got were people who weren't in the know, were vague check-ins. And even then, it seems that for the reason they reached out wasn't exactly because of the Shay stuff, they just wanted to in general. It effing broke me, and I've lost a lot of trust in people as a result. Since then, I had a couple of people tell me what happened, but I also hid from others because I was afraid. That is garbage, and I am sorry to hear that happened. It'll never amaze me how oftentimes victims get tossed to the side about stuff like this and aren't properly checked in on. What's going on here? Let me check something real quick. Boop, boop. There we go. Originally, before the first accountability post dropped, I had planned to have a voice call with Shay, but it fell through due to my lack of trust in them. Then, I had decided to go through one of the people who had helped look over the accountability post and send a second final message to them. But I got impatient, unblocked Shay, and sent it directly to them instead on the 16th of September 2025. I cannot post the entire message through a screenshot considering it is around 2,700 words long. You'll find the exact message I sent with names redacted out of it as the only edits here. Do not feel inclined to read the entire thing if you don't want to. It goes over a lot of stuff I've already gone over here, just less structured. The most important thing in this message is as a screen cap of the written statement, and this is bold plus highlighted. Shay was now properly aware of the 2 major events that occurred that triggered my want to cut myself off from them. There is no excuse for any misunderstandings of events. Shay says it literally exactly themselves at the end of their first blocks of messages, once again saying, "I have made no excuses, I will be better." Remember this. Shay once again was writing a lot, and there's a lot to take in, so I'm sorry if I don't go every single thing that they talked about. I'll leave all of it in the screenshots for you to read over yourself, but I'll try to limit myself to things that are most important to me. Shay directly acknowledges the exact wording of how they responded to my hickey tweet. They repeat to me about how they feel about themselves, about their intentions. A lot of this is self-aggrandizing. And no, I still don't care about intent. Intent doesn't matter when there's 2 whole years worth of documented progression and closeness starting from when I had turned 18. Intent doesn't matter when this is the second time you're having to address how you've hurt me. Intent doesn't matter when you go out of your way to flirt and make sexual comments at me and other people's expense. Intent doesn't effing matter when you know I'm arrow ace and unavailable, when you use the exact same fact to explain why someone shouldn't come to me about their issues with your behavior and dynamic with them. Intent doesn't matter when you normalize your sick, self-indulgent, disgusting behavior to me for years. True. Hold on, chat. Got the weef at the door. It didn't crash. I told you guys my wife was at the door. What they did to me wouldn't have been okay if they weren't a big content creator with almost 500,000 subscribers. The power that they had over me just made it so much easier to manipulate me into it and to get away with it. It began when I was 18, impressionable, and looking up to someone with influence over others. I didn't have a lot of experience in life, being autistic and mentally disabled. I was stuck at home all day and still am, plagued with anxiety about my future and my own abilities as a freshly new adult. I had just come out of a relationship where I felt like I was sexualized and perceived in ways I didn't want or consent to. I had a history of being inappropriately interacted with by people in my life. I made it clear to everyone around me I was arrow ace. Over those years, I just got used to Shay's behavior completely. I got used to them flirting with me without me realizing what it was. I got used to them sending me good morning messages. I got used to how they usually only spoke about my interest when it related to calling characters hot or sexualizing them. I got used to the inappropriate comments they made in moments where I was just trying to converse with them as a friend. I didn't even say anything when on the 29th of February 2024, they sent a suggested photo of themselves pulling their shirt over their crotch with their bare legs out while attempting to show me their new socks. I brushed past it and thought it was okay. I probably should have put that earlier, frankly. I want to share evidence for this, but that would involve sharing the picture, and I can't exactly do that. I mean, you could. You could. I trusted Shay. They did this for years. Another edit I'm having to make is I remember something else. I don't know where to put it, so it's going here. This year I was in voice call playing I Sat and Trusted, where Shay was watching me amongst other people. It had several hours since I started playing. Around the early hours, I had stretched due to how little I had moved. Because my stretch was audible, Shay said, "Hey, yo," and started making comments about how it sounded like I was moaning. Gross. I don't remember the exact moments, but I do remember feeling mortified at the moment. I laughed it off and tried to forget about it. It was only until around a month ago that I was in voice call with a friend who completely disconnected from Shay and Frog family, where I stressed again and instantly apologized. I was met with a response, "Why are you apologizing for that?" I was so used to the treatment I got from Shay and the environment of Trusted that I instantly assumed I would be sexualized elsewhere for stretching audibly. This made me realize how weird the situation originally was. You could have just edited the doc and put that up earlier. Anyway, back to the confrontation. Sorry again. Shay acknowledges the fact that they had downplayed their actions, something they would have continued to do past this in the second accountability post. They once again tell me how I feel, and then tell me to absolve myself of all guilt because it's not my fault. Soon after, they go back to their intent. I explained to them that their intent was difficult to parse. It still is. Throughout the entire process, it has felt 10 times worse, not being inside Shay's head to understand what the true intentions of all of this are. Because, like heck, am I going to trust what they say outright? They tell me that they didn't understand what was wrong, and that they wouldn't do something downright awful. It's clear to me that they still did not properly understand what was wrong, which is disappointing and scary. Shay then mentions to me that they feel as they had reason to ask about what they've done because everything seemed fine. This is deeply concerning considering the others who have experienced similar behavior, one of which called them out of 4 years prior. They were aware of the possibility of this happening again and were still not careful enough. Shay says what I did was brave, and in response to my paragraph about the good they did for me, starts to talk about the good I did for them. This entire paragraph is extremely skin-crawling gross to read with hindsight. I've spoken about how their treatment of me felt special, but this confirms that we had was special to them. At the time, this flew completely over my head. A month later, I read it with disgust. It is scary what they had so much attachment to me. No shade, these will not be happy memories for me to look back on. I'm sorry. I had to look back on these messages recently, and it fills me with horror. Once again, make it a point to mention how hard it was been for them. I made sure to tell them doing this was manipulative and inappropriate. As stated by myself, I did my best to limit explaining how badly this entire thing has affected me up until now. I was honest with them that they needed to stop, yet empathizing with them anyway. We continue. I explained to Shay that they made me feel special and that I felt scared to come to them about this. They tell me once again that I am brave for reaching out directly. I also said I forgive them for their reaction during the first confrontation, and I want to mention that since I retract that forgiveness, I don't forgive Shay in the slightest for any of this. This is getting exhausting to talk about and go through, so I'm sorry if this gets slightly more sloppy as time goes on. Please read the screenshots yourself and read some of my own responses since I point out things I'm not going to hear. Shay says they forgive me for struggling to communicate to them earlier. There's a lot of filler in this document that could have been cut down to the actual important instances. I keep forgetting what the actual issue is because he's feeding new details. The TLDR, Shay was sexual with them when they're not a sexual person. Right? This is where I tell them to stop befriending fans and then having sexual interactions with them. Yeah, I'm just going to go ahead and say this. There's some leeway there in general, but if you're dating a fan, be aware of that. And be aware it's probably not going to work out. Here you can see confirmation that they did not in fact show me the accountability post before it went out. They used their name dropping of me as a way to say they took accountability for my specific thing. This is just not how you take accountability, and the fact that they have the nerve to say that message clearly illustrates what happens is genuinely laughable. I acknowledged that I had seen as much as they said and actively told them that they had full consent to give as much detail as possible about the situation if they want to be 100% honest. This is something that, to this day, they failed to do. I probably don't remember. They've probably done this to 1 billion people. Imagine how exhausting it is to read if it's exhausting to write. True. Shay says they have a full understanding of their mistakes and that there will be no halfway doing it or half measures. This clearly isn't true based off the most recent accountability post. As if it was, I wouldn't be making this. Shay continues to talk about themselves, and I continue to reiterate that they have my full consent to share literally everything. That still stands today. Shay talks with me about something they have asked me not to share. I will respect that, but they pretty much almost trauma dumped to me about their past. They explicitly tell me that it isn't my burden to hear, but also told me enough to the extent that they acknowledge that I've figured out based on how I confronted them, because that's what I did, or comforted them. They had told me not to share what they had talked about, but give me a full consent to share everything else. They also tell me they hope that someday down the line I could see them well and thriving, and though it turned out okay. We started to get near the end of the conversation after talking for hours. I was starting to become nicer and more tolerant instead of stern. This tends to happen whenever I talk to Shay, and it's the reason why I refused further contact after this point. After a certain point, I just felt like talking to a friend again. I was honest that it was entirely possible to go back to hating their guts and told them they are free to use my art as they wish, as they are gifts. I still hold this belief. I told Shay to be mindful of other people when giving apologies or giving them space. Self-explanatory. I'm getting tired. At this point, I was being way too nice, and it irritates me. Trust me, I've been there. Eventually, after more conversations that isn't as important, our final messages are exchanged. They say some nice things, telling me I should forgive myself and to not hold anything over myself, and that's where it ends. Exhausting, but now we can move on, right? Well, what made me want the truth out? The thing is, a lot of pent-up emotions regarding how people had responded to Shay's initial accountability post. It was driving me nuts. Like, actually. After some pep talks and a lot of frustration, I had finally reached out to a couple of people who I really wanted to clear things up with because of how much it was eating away at me that they didn't have the full truth. I spoke to a couple of people, and in doing this, I realized how much it mattered to me that the information was included. It elicited empathetic reactions that surprised me. It changed things. And that's when I realized something. People needed the full truth, didn't they? Now, this was primarily an inside feeling. I had expressed how badly people needed to know about the truth to my friends, but I didn't intend to actually go about doing something about it yet. I wasn't in a state to be quite honest. I was a mess. This is when one of the people who read over Shay's first accountability post reached out to me in the early hours of the 4th of November of 2025 to let me know Shay was open to the idea of making another post detailing exactly what happened, but they wanted a third conversation with me. I was absolutely pissed off and terrified. The entire idea of Shay wanting to talk again broke me completely. Just tell him no then. What more could they possibly want to talk about? I asked the person who told me this why Shay wanted to talk to me again, and their answer was that they wanted to apologize while having the person's consultation on the matter. No. This was later cleared up to be a slight miscommunication, as the purpose of the conversation was supposed to be for making sure the second accountability post was right. I was only told this after the post was made, so I completely declined any attempt at a third conversation between me and Shay. Even if a mediator would be there, I was not okay with confronting this person again. I mean, I could be the mediator. I would say not nice things to him. I had already been through enough. I was not going to let Shay feel like they could absolve themselves of guilt by apologizing to me again. I had already heard enough apologies. Later in the day, the same day on the 4th of November 2025, I would wake up to a nasty surprise, the second accountability post. Like stated previously, on the 4th of November 2025, Shay made their most recent accountability post, and it was posted and trusted alongside screenshots of our conversation like I wanted. Once again, their post is extremely long in a .txt file, so I have to show it here for reference. The post is extremely flawed, even though it is the best post Shay has made on the situation to date. Most of it talks about themselves or their own trauma and issues, and anything related to other people as errors or shouldn't have been spoken about in the first place. Why should Shay not have spoken about them in the first place, you may be asking? It's simple. Nobody, and especially not Shay, came to any of the other people involved to ask if they could mention the times they had been inappropriate with them. Yeah. I didn't even get warned about this post being made until someone sent it to me after the fact. I am disgusted that none of the people affected were thought about when Shay made this. They should have been the top priority, and the fact that they weren't tells me this accountability post was rushed right off the bat. Yeah, probably. Not to mention that both Anonymous Number 3 and Audrey's dedicated parts are heavily downplayed. This post was a complete and utter failure at accountability, especially when the whole point was to specifically detail what happened to me. Starting here, like I had previously stated, Shay still fails to properly describe the incident, saying it was pretty explicitly written as, "God, I need this." We all know this isn't true. It was explicitly written, so when am I getting this? Throw verbatim. All of you can see the screenshot for yourself, so it troubles me that nobody caught this. Shay also adds that when it came across as though we're asking for a favor. Personally, I'd go as far as to say that wasn't even asking because of how demanding plus expecting it sounded. They then go on to admit that they probably thought I was being oversensitive, which is pretty crazy to me. I was extremely gentle in letting them know my discomfort. They continued in their statement and continued to use the environment they allowed and fostered and trusted as a crux, saying it would be easy to assume the worst to make it as malicious intent. I could maybe agree with this had there not been years of DMs where Shay acted weirdly, continuously, directly to me. You can check the collection of patterns and progress tab. Oh goodness, there's a tab for that. For a complete collection and list of said repeat behavior. There's a lot I haven't shown yet. Please do that once you're finished reading till the end of the doc. Oh boy. Shay then talks about the New Year's incident of 2023, citing the name's butt nickname as the reason. Like I mentioned earlier in this doc, there's no proof for this. Upon learning this was a narrative Shay was trying to spin, realizing Shay conveniently posted a discussion of a friend's Twitter banner being a Shay DDQ butt picture, I got pled to post a video of the entire conversation with that part included. Very effing sneaky. That or a stupidly bad F-up on their part. Seriously, what the actual heck? I don't know why you didn't send the entire video in full in the first place. I had sent them to the necessary person who helped with this. Said person has already apologized to me for their part in this, for the record. So what happened? The final thing I'd like to talk about concerning this post is how Shay partly distanced themselves from what they've said in the past. To clarify, to say it is still them and their responsibility, but still felt the need to put this part in the accountability post for whatever reason. So much of this post is so effing childish, it astounds me. Conclusion. Oh, thank God, we're almost done. I hope this document has finally shown you what type of person Shay is. Now you can make your own decision off all the facts and my own perspective. I am genuinely sorry you had to sit through over 13,000 words of this abysmal dog crap. Genuinely, thank you for taking the time to do so. It means the world. There's an entire tab dedicated to the patterns of behavior that I implore you to sift through. Please take your time and be wary that it is not pretty whatsoever. Be aware, not wary. This has been exhausting to write and has consumed my life for these past several days. If you have any questions, please don't be afraid to message me. I may not be quick to respond because I am so effing tired, but I hope I can answer anything you want to ask. I'm actually quite terrified of the reaction to this. I hope to see you sometime soon. Thank you. Don't message me if we don't know each other. Thank you. Well, Okay. The screenshots are included, hidden, just in a completely different tab. And guys, we're not rating them. We're just not. And it's just the basic thank you. And talking to other people. Here's the accountability posts. I don't think we need to read through all this. I'm just going to take this person's word for it on this case simply because a billion other people are talking about this, and frankly, they can blah. Azarath. How many pages is this one? Only 7. Thank you, God. Actually, I'm curious. I'm going to check out the other pages, too, just real quick. Come on. There we are. Come on. There we go. Let's see here. So that's 7. That's 11. 11. Yay. Good. Good. 16. Good Lord. 3. 2. 1, I guess. 5. 8. Okay. 9. 2. 3. All right, we can do this. As a statement, I'm writing this today to clear up some things. That what you do with it was your information. Feel free to contact me. I will not. I have known Shay for a long time, joining the community in 2021, and eventually becoming closer to them around late 2023. The relevant story here starts in June 2024. At this time, I was reeling from a messy breakup with my partner, whom I've been advised many times was abusive to me. They were harassing me for a solid month or two after I broke it off. I was far too nice to just cut them off, so I kept pussyfooting around, hoping they would get off my butt. Shay was completely aware of the breakup, knowing both of us well. Oh, who has messaged me? Homst. I've been tagged. Wow. Nothing too big. It is just people laughing at Bunny-chan being dumb. From the breakup on, Shay was continuously flirting with me. In one of our first conversations, I expressed that I was okay with it as long as it was kept platonically, and specifically if Shay doesn't get risque. When asked what my line was, I replied conservatively, anything more than a kiss on the cheek, you know? At one point soon afterward, I asked Shay for advice on matters regarding the aforementioned ex, and I proceeded to scold the individual in question lightly. Since we were both at Games Done Quick at the time, they got rather touchy and cuddly with me as I was dealing with this. I'm not going to say I didn't consent at the time, but their behavior was a bit more forward than it should have been. They were actively guiding me to put my head in their lap, and a few days later they would, explicitly stated as such by them, feel up my butt. Should have done that. This was very clear. I had outright stated my line for acceptable behavior. It should be quite clear that this action was over the line. Yeah, it's us over the line over than a kiss. Given an observed pattern of behavior that's come to light recently, it leaves a really bad taste in my mouth that they were being so physically affectionate and flirtatious at the time. I was only 18 and incredibly emotionally raw and vulnerable at that point in my life. In our first conversation after Games Gone Quick, Shay called me hot and told me I had a nice butt. They also immediately stated again that they were okay with sexual activities with friends. I responded with disinterest, discomfort with sexual acts, and also expressed my dislike for being called hot at the time. From then on, nearly every DM exchange with them would contain something flirtatious. Although I was nearly universally irritated by them, I would continue to grow used to their expectation and preempted myself on some occasions, just as a general example. In one conversation in August, they would send me the following string of messages as I somewhat assented. I've been told I have a nice butt, but I wanted a durable trans girl grabbing it. This applies to several things, to be honest, replying to the previous grabbing message. It seems to me that the Shay individual just pushes whatever boundary they can for the thrill of pushing the boundary. And as such, should be beaten for it. And I don't care if people think it's cringe to say that, that's what should happen. The fetishistic tone towards me being transgender sticks out, and the unneeded and explicitly unwanted sexual advances does this as well. She is known to act in a dehumanizing way towards trans people in some instances, but this was, to my knowledge, the only time it would happen to me. Other than that, it was a very routine exchange for us. Scores of similar instances would occur in the previous and following month. Again in DMs in August, they called me a bottom, and I responded with, I am apathetic and ambivalent, to indicate disinterest in topic as a whole. I honestly never enjoyed the flirting, it's just something I did for their own fulfillment. Though I did feel mild pressure to do so, to stay in good standing with a friend. I don't particularly hate it at the time, so I went along. I would express this in a conversation in August, a few days after I previously quoted one. Condensed. Shay, you have broken my brain a bit. I gotta go find something real quick. Where'd Fish put it? Here, fishy. Where'd you put the audio clip? Do. I will find him! There he is.
You actually broke my mind.
Dreamer mockery is always good. You really chose the wrong person for this, you know. LMAO, what do you mean? It's mutual. Arguable. What do you mean? Look, man, I'm gonna be entirely real. This is fun, but I think you get a lot more out of this than me. Not to say I dislike it. You should have just told me you dislike it. Please. Honestly, I'm mostly just playing along. Same. It feels as if I'm mostly just playing along wasn't entirely a lie looking back, but that's neither here nor there. 1 week later, Shay would initiate a DM exchange by saying, "You're cute," signaling that nothing had changed. I would reject advances or try to subvert them so as to be humorous and not flirty more and more in the next period, and I would express that I was doing so intentionally. The flirting continuously made me more and more uncomfortable as it went on. Around the turn of the year, I would start responding even more coldly at times, ignoring advances and simply responding with a friendly tone. By many accounts, this caused them to seek more attention from others, which seems to be a pattern for with their victims. They would continue to solicit with occasional reciprocation, flirting from me for some time. Perhaps the most egregious example came in January of 2025, when they stated that they had used a body hair removal product I had recommended. They asked me if I wanted to see the results, and, curious to the effectiveness, I said sure. Expecting a tame picture, as had previously been exchanged on the subject, they sent me a picture spoiled and marked "thigh warning." The photograph was fully nude and showed most of their body, obscuring only genitals. This photo was clearly meant to be seen in a sexual context. Well, yeah. It was posed suggestively, and they put a peace sign as they often do in regular selfies. I guess the picture was originally intended for and posted to their second suggestive Twitter alt, which has since been deleted. Let me once again state for the record that I explicitly did not want a sexual relationship of any sort with Shay. I said as much to them several times. I gathered myself and responded only by stating that I should do the process soon as well, attempting to stonewall them. This made me deeply, horribly uncomfortable, and feels even worse in retrospect knowing other advances they made. I hated it. It's revolting. I still hate it. Fair. The sequence of events may have just affected me most was the most recent. I started dating a former partner, Wiley J. Wiley, at the end of February. They're strictly monogamous, as am I. Based. I should have been well known to Shay, given that Shay and Willie are longtime friends, and a previous breakup of Willie's was pretty explicitly about differences in that. Shay knew the aforementioned previous partner of Willie's quite well, too. On March 17th, Shay DM'd me and asked, among other niceties and DMs, whether I was still okay with them with friend flirting. Given that I was then in a relationship, I dodged the question. It made me very uncomfortable. However, I probably did too good of a job at hiding it. On April 9th, they messaged me again, stating the conversation by simply replying, "boop," to their previous request for flirting. I dodged the question again, stating that I would ask my partner. I never did so, knowing that it would make them intensely uncomfortable. They did the exact same boop again on April 24th, while also indicating that it was their second time bumping the question. This pressure to respond made me feel extremely or intensely anxious, and this time I would flatly deny their request, saying no, and flirting is not comfy. On May 15th, they checked in on me again. Early in this exchange, they would ask again for affection/flirting. Just checking in again, cuddling is a no, right? My brain is deep-fried the past days, lol. This really struck me as strange, not only given that I had flatly denied the request not a month prior, but also because it was very recent on our message history. You had to barely scroll to find it. This felt not like a second check for safety, but more like an attempt to coax me into eventually relenting. This repeated crossing of boundaries until one relents is also a very common pattern in Shay's behavior. It was quite demeaning, and this is why I am mentioning the sequence at all. It demonstrates further the pattern of repeated advances after being denied. Sometime after July 15th, my partner and I would break up for reasons irrelevant here. Just know that it was not a conflict. It was heart-wrenching for the both of us and took a good while to recover from. Shay knew this and paid it no mind. On July 30th, a group of several friends took a trip to Cedar Point, including Shay, Willie, and I. The first night we were in the cabin all together. I was sitting on a couch near Wiley, entirely ignoring all the context and not even shooting me a glance to see if it was all right. Shay sat next to me in a spot such as we were quite snugly together and tried to lean in. If this sounds like a mistake, please note that they would later state explicitly that it was an attempt to get cuddly. I did not want to be next to them, and they did not, whatsoever, ask if it was okay. As such, I tried to move away slightly, and upon that not being effective, I left my seat rather quickly. This incident left even more of a sour taste in my mouth, given other instances of similar behavior I now know of. It feels almost as though they were being intentionally ignorant of consent and boundaries just to gain what they wanted. What do we do if the beating doesn't work? Beat them more. Beat them until they can't be beaten anymore, and then you won't have the problem at all. I'd like to take a moment to confide in the reader. On a more personal note, why I think I went along with this for too long. You'll find this relevant, perhaps not, just putting it into context and posterity. My first partner exhibited obsessive, possessive, and coercive behavior towards me for most of our relationship. Would get extremely upset if I didn't respond in 10 minutes, constantly love-bombed me and expected the same in return. Would pick fights with me over me talking at all to other people, often requested acts that I was explicitly not comfortable with, and had to repeatedly deny, etc. You get the point. At a point, you start feeling comfortable and safe confined to this behavior, a la Stockholm Syndrome. It's routine, it doesn't get you in trouble, it's not negative. Besides, if you step out, you'll be scolded like the wrath of God. You're trapped. I finally had enough and left after a year of this. I was in dwindling moments of denial about it until very recently. You recall that Shay started coming on to me at mere weeks after this breakup. It's also worth noting that Shay would later downplay my ex's behavior, calling it merely immature and just needing some attention, to paraphrase. The way Shay behaved towards me felt eerily similar to this. I felt forced to respond. They constantly love-bombed me, yet never respected me as a person. They would act angsty when I didn't respond, double texting, tripling down on advances when I was cold. They would ignore me rejecting them and act like they were keeping me safe by prodding over and over on uncomfortable topics. They had power over me, mentally, logistically. It felt comfortable to me, familiar, safe, predictable, easy, even when I hated it. That's all. Finally, I'd like to touch on how utterly disrespectful Shay has been towards me. Oh, thank you for a new subscriber. And others involved in coming forward about this in the recent months. Please note that the section is heavily opinionated and that the reader may not have the same takeaways I did, which is fine with me, just a disclaimer. For context, I left Shay's server in early mid-September after hearing accounts of wrongdoing from a friend, and a few people also did the same time. Just as I left their server, Shay quickly issued an apology, likely in a panic. I'm sorry for whatever it is that I did. I valued you a lot, and you were always very kind to me. Thank you for that. Frankly, this felt terrible to read. Hopefully it's self-evident. I'm sorry for whatever it is I did is barely an apology. I haven't even said anything about how Shay was acting with me or reflected on it yet. I left the server mostly for reasons of hearing other people's situations, as well as mild disdain for the social atmosphere and the trusted channels where many of Shay's close friends talked. The apology was at least somewhat excusable given the panic at the time. 4 days later, I would be sent the following message. I want to write a real apology, not whatever that previous written in the middle of panic attack thing was, but something that is actually meaningful. I'm so sorry about how badly I overstepped your boundaries. I stupidly looked seemingly okay with this as an excuse to go further, even though I should have known. This isn't true consent, and it also wasn't right to do to someone who was emotionally reeling from a breakup. I'd assumed that because we cuddled so much during the GDQ, that we were closer than we were in that regard, and I was getting mixed messages about my behavior moving forward, which I should have immediately stopped and questioned. I should have immediately asked and said, "Are you okay with this?" before escalating. But I didn't, and that's a massive failing for me. I am deeply sorry how this affected you, and that I did not realize that you were probably uncomfortable. I foolishly would take normalcy and lack of acknowledgement as a sign that things were fine, but that's not the case. I should have been smarter, more concerned, and more on top of making sure you were comfortable with the advances I made and knowing to stop immediately if you told me you weren't. I know that once you told me to stop, I did, and it should not have come to that. It should have stopped before it began, and for that I am extremely sorry. I am taking a lot of steps to make sure I don't repeat these situations moving forward. I'm getting therapy. I'm entangled in a deep web of trauma that has normalized these interactions to me. Your friendship matters a lot to me. I really appreciate you and the kindness you always showed me. And I'm sorry I wasn't nearly as aware as I should have been of the discomfort I was sowing. It's squarely on me, and I'll own that. I'm sorry. Although slightly more thorough, the message followed a pattern from the first that would continue to show in future writings regarding the incidents from Shay. All these apologies seemed off, and I think it's purely for the reason that they seem self-centered. Not to be too snarky, but they focus a lot on how terribly sorry Shay feels, and the excuses for the things they did and how they'll change and how stupid they were. Conversely, the events described feel downplayed significantly and incomplete in the text above. They lined up almost perfectly with the events I had disclosed in certain chats that I know they were discussed with Shay, as if we were working backwards from them. Yet many others that I had not detailed yet were entirely excluded. It feels not like reflection, but rather a template. Some others may mention apologies in years past, but this behavior echoes. The trend would continue in the posting of a document called accountability.txt in the previously mentioned trusted channel. There was also a case where interactions between me and another friend bordered on that kind of interaction, and at some point the other person declined to go further. I respected that and stopped, but it also left the feeling uncertain about me in general and led to discomfort. Seeing everything else I had gone through made this significantly worse for them and has hurt them. Another failing on my part. I'm almost certain this excerpt is describing my own case. I'm not sure, though. Given Shay never told me whether it was or not, among gratuitous paragraphs upon paragraphs of what can only be described as trauma dumping, there was a tiny section about me. I was made aware of this only upon reading the document sent to me by a third party after its posting in the Trusted. It is also confirmably true for other parties mentioned directly or only vaguely in the document. No one was notified. This appalled me. It was immensely disrespectful, only adding further to feeling dismissed by the previous actions and words. Why was I not asked or alerted before the posting? Why was I not named such that it could be corroborated? Why was the section so brief, incomplete, downright dismissive, and incorrect? Why didn't they care? These questions left as an exercise for the reader. I asked Shay to explain themselves, attaching the previous excerpt, and they deflected by asking what I wanted from them. I proceeded to lay out with copious amounts of, hopefully understandable, anger attached, what I was questioning and an ultimatum. I don't want to play games, so if that part is not about me, then heed my words at least somewhat, because I know I wouldn't be the only one. And if this is about me, then listen carefully enough to get through your thick effing skull of yours. It is absolutely appalling that you would say this. A, so dismissively, completely underselling every single part of it. B, without asking at all, especially knowing I clearly wanted nothing to do with you given my previous words. C, unattributed to me and so vague that it becomes a blob of feel bad for me nonsense that can't be questioned at all. If you would like to amend your statement on the events between us, please let me know at your earliest convenience. I can prepare a briefing to be published by you, unedited and attributed to me. It will be scathing. They have not responded. Well, congratulations, Catalyst, or the Catalyst, 30 years old. Happy birthday to you. Now, I will tell you right now, you should not be wondering why these horrible people do the horrible thing, because at the end of the day, you're never going to get a good answer. At the end of the day, no one is going to be able to tell you something that's going to make you heal. You cannot get healing or answers like that from the people who hurt you, and trying to do so is just going to cause you further damage. So be aware of that when you have to deal with this stuff. All right, so Anonymous number 3. Is this the one? Who has the 16? Trying to find the one with the 16 pages. Who was that? Okay, that guy. Anonymous number 3. Hi, I'm Anonymous number 3, a former moderator and friend of Shay. I've been close friends with them. All right, let me see here. I'm skimming through this because this person's essentially just talking about the fact that they were a moderator and just talking about what had happened and what had gone on. Beers towards 17-year-old fan. Shay DM'd me on December 27, 2020. However, it was in February 2021 that we actually became closer. I just made the assumption everyone was a degen. I found out through YouTube videos some people have a fetish for something called sissy hypnosis, and I think it's hilarious. God, why did I need to read that? Why? Why? I don't think I need to state why assuming your 17-year-old friend is a degen and then explaining a kink is a bad thing. Years down the line, yeah, you shouldn't have to. Shay would talk to others about their hypnosis kink. All right, so that's gross. So this is essentially going on. Let's see here. However, this rule is interesting, especially considering 4 other people that Shay modded in 2021 were all under 18. A 17-year-old, 2 16-year-olds, and a 15-year-old! Why? Why are they even in your space, much less a mod, you drooling simpleton? And why did nobody do anything about it? Look, Shay's a scumbag, pretty obviously, but some of you guys need to get your heads out of your butts. Why would Shay lie? Why would they say this? A similar sentiment. So why were some of the only people whose age was taken into consideration before getting out for modern? I'm sorry to hear that they got groomed. I'm just... The mod that was a groomer. In the early hours of February 14, 2022, Shay, Uber, and some friends and myself all played Calamity into the night, completely unaware that at the same time, Wiley would be notified that Uber was using his status as a mod in Shay's community to leverage over a 15-year-old grooming them. Wiley would be notified that Uber was using his status. Why? The screenshot I sent the next day were appalling. I was miserable in every sense of the word. Someone I thought was my friend was doing this to someone in our community. Okay. Look, when you are dealing with somebody doing something to a kid, you need to suck up your own feelings. This isn't about you. So the fact that this is the first thing you're talking about pisses me off. It's like those stupid bronies did when Toon Critic got outed and they made it all about them. We feel so betrayed. We're so upset. I can't believe he'd do this and betray our trust. Screw you. Alright, screw you. This isn't about your feelings. It's about what they did to a kid. It tore me and the other people into shreds. We hastily workshopped a vague corporate statement about why Uber was suddenly gone. You don't need a corporate statement. Just say, hey, he's a kid toucher and we hate him. Shay completely shut down after this, going completely MIA, save for frequent venting. It severed my trust with the server. And after this, I was never as close to the community again. Try as I did, it was never going to be the same. In April, the very victim of Ubers would make a separate offshoot server. Once the server was made, it really slowed down and talking in Shay's community, almost exclusively talking in there. I finally had it. The tight-knit circle of online friends that I trusted with everything. This would be where 90% of my future online interactions with Shay came from. DMs from them were sparse since the initial incident in 2021. Let's see here. Didn't need to know about their conflicts with their mothers. Okay, he's being a dick to people. Another mutual friend between us, and I went to a hotel hot tub. We were returned to Shay's room. I immediately went to the bathroom to change out of my swimsuit into regular clothes. Then Vel changed in the bathroom, then Pleb. Star was already in the room, laying in bed. Then while grabbing food from the fridge, I hear Shay say, "Don't look," from behind me, with no elaboration. Now, I don't know why, but when someone says don't look at something, most people's first reaction is to look. By the time they said not to look, they'd already stripped down. So Pleb, Vel, and myself all turned our heads and were greeted with Shay bent over completely naked, their bare butt out for everyone to see. Shay, instead of apologizing for changing in front of everybody, claimed it was everyone else's fault for turning around when they said not to. Mind you, Vel was 16 and facing Shay. Shay said it was their fault. They looked up from their phone to see Shay completely naked. I don't need a diagram. Alright? I don't. The bathroom was empty. They could have gone in there to change like the rest of us did, or even in the corner of the room closest to the door. They could have just specified that they were changing and no one would have looked. However, they did none of that. Yeah, that was intentional. There's no way he did that on accident. He should kill himself immediately. This is the person who they cuddled up with and they could feel their pee-pee on the leg. Look, if you're going to format something like this, put the horrible things up front. Like, I don't need, nobody needs all of the feelings, as horrible as that might say, but we already had a 15-year-old that was a mod, a 16-year-old that got groomed, or rather a 15-year-old that got groomed, and then a 16-year-old who was shown somebody naked in the person, and then that was further down. That was on page 7? The heck? What should I do? What the F do I do? After a minute or two, I got my bearings and got up and decided I had no choice but to make a scene, loudly asserting I wanted personal space. Shay was confused, saw nothing wrong with what was happening. I immediately felt it was my fault. This is happening to me. Well, at least you stood up for yourself. D-Day in the aftermath. Okay. This could have been a diary post. Yeah, no. Alright. Hey, Wiley J. Wiley here. I haven't been impacted like the others have, but I wanted to detail an interaction that might shed some light in some way that may feel about speaking up against Shay in the past. In early 2023, Shay had posted some pictures to her private Twitter account that started out simply minorly revealing, showing some skin in a way that was not bad at all, citing happiness with their body and a focus on body positivity. These photos would become increasingly more revealing and potentially subjective, culminating in a picture being sent in mid-April of 2023, which, to many, went way too far. To the extent of my knowledge, no record of the actual image exists to this day, but unfortunately the image is forever etched in my memory. The image specifically was frontal bare midriff thighs with genitals obscured. While not explicitly not safe for work, it was the kind of image that borders in that category in every possible way. While the purpose of that is to detail the confrontation afterwards, I found it very concerning that minors were able to plainly see the image. Why didn't these people kill him? They should have killed him. On April 17th of 2023, a conversation in Shay's trusted channel started regarding intentionally not having a not safe for work channel in her server. I use this as an opportunity to address my concerns about the content previously mentioned in their private Twitter account. I'll send pictures of the confrontation here. Okay. Whining. He's just freaking whining. Shay's a pussy. Just them essentially arguing about it. You know what? I'll just have to say, if somebody was a groomer or allowed grooming, I really don't need to see every single argument you have with them. Just call them a creep and beat them. Alright, on to Say. Hi, I'm Say, a writer for Calamity who used to work with Shay on various projects involving it. I also moderated their Discord and Twitch chat before all this happened. As my contribution to all this here's them trying to get me to specifically come over while Star was away. Even after clarifying if I visited, I wanted to be able to see them both. As of now, it's pretty effing clear that Star didn't actually know everything, and Shay probably just wanted to do stuff with me behind her back. After this, they always became seemingly very sheepish about working out a time I would come visit after. I later clarified again I wish to see them both. Okay. Jade's Evolution. In winter of 2023, I had gotten a message from my fiancé about how Shay had DM'd asking about sexual related things, and it was okay because they had permission from Star to do them because she's asexual and they have an outlet for sexual desires. Sigh. I'll admit that at the same time, polyamory was still new to me, so the line at the time was for what was acceptable wasn't entirely clear. But what was clear was that Shay then pressured my fiancé into having e-sex and wanted to have more encounters after the fact. This, for the record, happened while I was unaware what was going on, because I only found out about my fiancé had after told me about the fact. Drop him. Drop him. Unironically. If your fiancé is doing sexual stuff behind your back without telling you, polyamory or not, drop him. The situation made me feel betrayed and angry because there was no communication on the matter and almost ruined my relationship at the time with my soon-to-be wife, or her. No, you should have. You should have cut it then. The heck. It was only after I had messaged Shay about how crappy their actions were, they apologized and told me they properly asked for a line of communication when it came to sex, as there was no permission given by me or my fiancés to other partners to engage in that sort of act, but they deemed it okay because my fiancé and I were poly despite not being how our relationship operated at the time. What? For clearly we were in a poly relationship, not an open one. Again, your partner cheated on you. Drop them. So sex had to be communicated, not done whenever. Shay knowingly forced their way through just to use my fiancé and force... Look, I get that Shay's a piece of garbage, but so's your fiancé. Straight up. You're the victim here, not that person, and not Shay. After all this, I tried to share my story, but it was buried by the testimony that it was okay, and they just do this, and eventually I felt pressured in the future to apologize to them for losing my crap at them for pressuring sex out of my fiancé. I had to hide this and ignore this because no one cared to believe me. They almost broke my relationship because they wanted to use my fiancé for sex, and I had to deal with this notion that they'll improve or grow and not repeat the same crap they kept effing doing. This is very much so like the Sega Sister crap, where she was claiming she was a victim of Toon Critic, when the truth of the matter is she consented to literally everything, cheated on her boyfriend, yada yada, and made herself a victim. Your fiancé isn't a victim here. You are. You can get mad about me if you want, I don't care. Prisma posted a clip in chat quotes with Shay making a joke about Gox. Let's see here. I want to see what this person had, what the problem is, so I don't have to read 11 freaking pages or 16 freaking pages. Let's see what they got. This person seems to be a trans chaser, by the way. I have noticed that pattern. The heck? Isn't life so much easier when I choose your gender? Your pronouns are mine. Your pronouns are... I need to find something. Give me a second.
Your brother's soul is mine. Your soul is mine.
Who does this Shang Sun sucker think he is? Your pronouns are mine. What an absolute loser. Everybody should mock this guy into the ground for the creepy little freak trans chaser he is. I wish somebody would Mortal Kombat fatality him. What a loser. Oh god, what a sick little deranged monkey. I don't know if I did last time. Let me make sure I do this time. Copy. I'm going to put the Google Doc in the chat so you guys can also read it at your own leisure. Boop. Yeah, you should have just... This is one of those people you should have just bullied into the ground forever. Unironically. Should have just bullied them. Like, if Shay even came into Cat Slayer, we just would immediately bully them. Yeah, they're a trans chaser, obviously. It's a fetish thing. Fetish thing, they chase trans and arrow ace people. Alright, Xander's a loser. A lot of you know me from Shay's community and John Stone's community. I would consider myself a victim of Shay. Alright. Who has been seeking me out for sexual interactions in September 2023 when I was at PAX West. All of our interactions from now were consensual between us. What? I was under no impression they were using me, at least at the time. Feels kind of weird that I'm an outlier in all this, as one of the only cis dudes involved. Well, that's surprising. I still haven't quite come to the fact that I was likely used for sexual gratification. Well, unfortunately, if you consented to it, you shouldn't have consented to it. Because he admits here, all of our actions from then on were consensual between us. While he began seeking him out in sexual interactions in September 2023, since then, everything was consensual between you. Yeah, it sucks to be treated like garbage and treated like an afterthought after sex, but unfortunately you did consent to that. That's on you. So where's the victimhood? Is it like emotional dickery? Because yeah, that sucks, but like it's not the same as touching a kid. Alright, the statement is not going to be anonymous, so I won't bother introducing myself, and I'm sorry this take me so long, but I'm dealing with a lot of emotions right now, and please, Shay, I urge you to take this very seriously. I urge him to kill himself. I've been friends with Shay for about half a decade. I've seen... Let's see here. So it's just about him being an emotionally dickhead. Okay. I mean, the guy should still die, but like, why is this here? Okay, some of this is just, come on, guys. The flavor of wheat, they teased me a lot in DMs on live streams, and yes, they really wanted me to grow my hair out. I was not. Yeah, this dude's just obsessed with trans people. I am not wanting to read any of this out loud. Heck no. Okay, so they're being a creep to somebody who was in a relationship. Admits that this was consensual. Didn't need to know they had pet play. These are things I did not need to know. Alright. Shay flirted with me in DMs constantly for months while in a monogamous relationship. They also stared straight down my chest for a noticeably long time. At first GDQ I went to and asked me to give me massages 4 times at GDQ 2025 when my partner was right there. Well, I said no repeatedly. Creepy uncle behavior. I expect at this point the only reason I don't have many more instances of Shay being creepy with me at James Cooks. People were actively keeping Shay away from me. Should have just beaten him. This is somebody who was just being reached out to for e-sex, so that tracks with this little creep. I talk about sexting. All right, let's see here. I've not been a victim of Shane or as a close friend. Okay, why are you here then? No, seriously, why are you here? Former moderator of Shay's Discord. Another person being used for sexual gratification. I regret sending anything during that. Well, she shouldn't have consented then, to be honest with you. I'm not saying that to be cruel. Yellow? Yeah, I read through part of Yellow's at least. Is there anything specifically in Yellow's that actually needs to be discussed? Can you do what you did with Jar? I don't think Jar lives, or I don't think Shay lives in this state. Deborah, if there's something in Yellow's testimony, I kind of didn't know, because mostly this is just somebody talking about how he sees his friends being treated poorly. And not communicating things. Anywho. We're a moderator. Used for sexual gratification. Of course they were. Last one. Oh boy. When I was 17, I showed up in Shay's chat. About 8 months later, right when I turned 18, Shay tone shifted and got really flirty real fast. They constantly told me I was pretty and made sexually charged jokes towards me. Even after I said I'm in a monogamous relationship and I was uncomfortable. Beat him! Beat them to death. Beat them to death! If Lio arrested Shay, would Shay touch Lio in a place and in a way that makes him feel uncomfortable? No, but I'd make them feel uncomfortable. Things stayed pretty restricted to just compliments and things and DMs I would ignore until Games Done Quick 2025. We were in a hotel room. I was showing Shay a video on my phone, and they invited me to sit with them. So I got it from my bed and sat next to Shay for a bit. They quickly put an arm around me and physically pulled me with them to lay down. Because I got lucky and my partner happened to be in a room, the situation was interrupted very quickly, and they got me physically away from Shay for the time being. I was visibly uncomfortable enough that someone physically interrupted the situation. After this, we went to a big group dinner with Shay. My partner was so anxious over what happened to the point that we had to go to the bathroom and have a panic attack. They didn't tell me this until after the fact because they didn't want to stress me over it. While we were in the bathroom, the topic of age came up at the table. Shay's exact words were, "I can't believe people your age are old enough to be propositioning me." What? Who's propositioning you, creepo? I had a physical reaction to this comment, immediately felt my chest hurt and throat get tight. I felt like I had given Shay the idea I wanted an actual sexual relationship. I snapped back. Who said I was propositioning you? And the topic seemed to be dropped. Oops. Once my partner returned to the table, I went to the bathroom to have a panic attack of my own. Well, I'm glad we're taking turns at panic attacks. Shay and I's conversation in the past felt how I was objectified, but, I've noticed something about a lot of these. They're all typed in the same manner. They're not capitalizing things they should. A lot of them are like that. I wonder why. Curious. At games done quick, me and friends went to Shay's hotel room to say goodbye because people were leaving early the next morning. During this, Shay went to hug me, and they picked me up by the waist. They were holding me. They adjusted a little bit, and I chopped it up to an uncomfortable grip. They swayed with me, so my dangling legs were moving, and I felt their erection press into my thigh. Fantastic. They held me there for about 30 seconds before they sat me down. I felt violated. I was 18 and had just gone on a trip without my parents for the first time. I didn't deserve to be touched like that, especially not in a crowded hotel room. And the nice thing is, for those of you who are small and able to be picked up by your waist, if somebody does that to you, your arms are free. So what you do is you take your hands, you fold them into fists, and you swing them on each side of his head to his temple. I promise you they will let you go. Okay, so it doesn't look like Deborah's told me what's so important about, Yellow's story, unfortunately. Well, we kind of got through it. I skipped quite a bit of the stuff that just doesn't make sense to have here. Look, let's go back to the initial. Okay, let's go back to the initial. What's the main? Sexual assault. We saw a bit of that. Sexual harassment. Yeah. Grooming. Where's the grooming? Grooming is preparing somebody for sexual intent, specifically if they're underage. I know that there's more definitions to that, but that is what people mean when they say that online. Stop trying to extrapolate it out to other things, because at that point, everybody's a groomer. Stop being dishonest. Where was the grooming? We have the orbiting of fans, if any of this is true. But I haven't seen any grooming. Good Lord. So, I'm going to put in the chat a poll. I went over it, but it's just, there's not much there to really go with. A lot of it's just, I was there, I feel bad. Boop. Do you think Shay is guilty? Yes or no? Now, apparently, there's other videos that have been released, other statements. We're not going to cover those. You guys can go to the op block if you feel you need to. I'd rather do other streams about other things. Maybe mess with other scumbags. Let me see if there is anybody I want to raise you guys into. Beckett's not streaming. Neither is Chris. Block isn't either. Nobody I know is currently streaming, so no rating into any of that. Sorry, guys. So, I am not knowledgeable if Star Smiley has reported the sexual assault they say happened to them to the police. If they haven't, they need to. And I know you may not have physical evidence. I get that. But even if you don't, you need to. Because the cops have to work off of something. And the more you give them, the better off it is. I have seen enough evidence to prove that this dude's a bona fide freak. They're a sex-obsessed, trans-chaser fetishist. And as the sooner this person gets the life beaten from them, the better off everybody will be. Frankly. I think that orbiting a minor until they turn into an adult is gross behavior. I've been on the record very strongly against that. Older women are better, frankly. And you're a creep if you do that, I think. Now, it's a bit more conflicted if you meet them at 18 and you wind up dating them later on. That's a bit different. There's some things to talk about there, but don't orbit people. That's creepy and weird, and somebody needs to beat you to death over it. At least that's what I think. There's so much testimony of sexual assault and such that I think they need to be chased off the internet and going to jail. True. Not a groomer, but an orbiter, 100%. Yeah. So, let's go ahead and get to the super chats. Let me get back to the main screen here, since we're done reading. To studio. Statio. Community. Earn. Super Perks and gifts. So, from Dean Draxon, $10. My heart goes out to the victims. Thank you for having a decent balance of light jokes to lighten the mood and genuine advice. This makes it easier to listen to despite the awful topic. Well, I'm trying. I don't think it was all that entertaining, though. Digital sketch for $10. And oh, Klonoa is chewing the cords. Get the raid. Get the mallet. Lacy Black Cat for $5. Use this to get a good drink or a punching bag. Well, we'll see. Toby for $5. Hole in the ground immediately. True. Dean Draxon for $5. Wood chipper. Render them into a fine red paste. Toby for $5. It genuinely pisses me off how often trans people are either vilified or fetishized. True. It is very vexing, isn't it? In fact, let me go ahead and, since somebody made a reference to it, let me go ahead and do something just real quick. Where is it? Where is it? Where is it?
I will not tolerate the forces of evil!
Yes. Dark Morigatito for $2. They have freak behavior, not in a fun way. True. True. Good God. I think that's enough. I'm not sure what we're going to cover next time we stream. I'm tempted to do several different things. We'll probably cover something nerd related for next time, even though like only 20 people are going to show, because I need at least a little bit of levity where I bully the owner of Super 7 and I make him and everybody uncomfortable in a stream. Yeah, it's fun stuff. But I'm going to go ahead and send you guys to the commercials, and yes, I'll get some new ones for the end too at some point. You guys take it easy, and we'll catch you later.
Get ready for explosive action with the Silverhawks. Holy hyperdrive! These space-age crime busters are going to strike a blow for justice. That's it, Silverhawks. Show them how it's done by rounding up the intergalactic mob led by public enemy #1. His name is Munstar. So soar with the superheroes that fly on wings of silver and fight with nerves of steel. The Silverhawks.
Weekday mornings at 6:30 on TV 14.
Uh-oh.
Darkwing Duck, grade A superhero who gets a D in everything else.
Launchpad, the book.
He's destructive.
Evildoers everywhere fear me.
He's deranged.
I'm sure it seems that way to the untrained eye.
He's the greatest superhero in St. Bernard.
Let's get dangerous.
But to his friends, he's just good old DW.
Gee.
Weekdays on Darkwing Duck.
Weekdays at 3 on the WB Channel 11.
The Swordcats. What are they doing here?
Your job, Feral.
Only a sorcerer's dark power could have brought these ancient bones to life. It must have been the past master.
Don't worry, Miss Briggs. We'll take care of it. And him.
How many lives do these cats have? From its ashes I will create a new city where lawlessness is the law of the land.
I used to be Dr. Purvis, but now you can call me Dr. Viper.
Hey, bucket butts, is this a private party? Or can anybody join? Outstanding!
Down these mean skies, a cat must fly. We want to be the good guys.
Do you think Darkcat will surface again soon?
Well, when he does, we'll be waiting. Both of us. Count on it.
On the next all-new Ninja Turtles.
Like the phoenix, I have risen from the ashes, and into my fire you shall fall.
Guys, I say we shred his butt once and for all.
I will not allow you to destroy my family.
My sons, retreat!
Hey, the store's getting hot.
Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles!
Next Saturday, only in the Fox Box.
Dragonis is destroying the city. Here comes the hockey-playing Mighty Ducks to save the day. Oh, Mighty Ducks! Wildwing skates in and joins Grin and Duke LaRange as they stop the evil Lord Dragonis from destroying the world. Go, Mighty Ducks, go! Wildwing fires his puck. Duke throws his grappling hook and swings into action. Grin skates in with a super crunch. Go! And here comes the Duck Cycle firing pucks to finish off Dragonis. Ducks rock! The new Mighty Ducks figures and Duck Cycle sold separately. Duck Cycle coming soon.
What hidden terror keeps the Batman awake at night?
We should start with your childhood, yes, child?
Bruce.
Is there some past tragedy?
What hidden terror keeps the Batman awake?
I was only a child.
Don't blame yourself.
What hidden terror? Bruce.
A need filled you.
He ain't human.
All consuming. All control.
Who are you?
I'm your worst nightmare.
Bruce. Don't go in there.
Why couldn't you save us? Why couldn't you save us? Why couldn't you save us, son?
I am vengeance. I am the night. I am Batman.
Batman. Tonight at 7 on Cartoon Network.
It's payback time.